The first time Kalira Veillon suspected something was wrong, it was winter in Varensport. Snow clung to the edges of the old stone buildings, the streets gleamed under frost, and the sea beyond the harbor was black with cold. She was on the balcony of her townhouse, sipping tea, watching the wind push smoke sideways from the chimneys. Her husband, Arend Veillon, was supposed to be at the office of Veillon Maritime, their family shipping company. Instead, she caught sight of him below, stepping out of a sleek black car, his coat unbuttoned against the cold. A woman followed him out, younger, laughing at something he'd said. She had dark hair, a red scarf, and the kind of careless confidence that came from believing the world would always meet you halfway. They didn't see Kalira. She stayed still, letting the tea cool in her hand. It wasn't the kind of scene that could be proven, not yet. Kalira had been married to Arend for 12 years. Together, they had turned Veillon Maritime into the largest logistics firm on the eastern coast. They were the kind of couple who appeared in magazines, photographed on yachts at charity galas, at the front row of cultural festivals. People liked to believe their marriage was perfect, and Kalira had once believed it too. But now, watching him disappear into the snow with someone else, she remembered her father's warning the night before her wedding. Love isn't blind, Kalira. It just chooses what not to see. For months, she chose not to see. She buried the suspicion under work, social obligations, and the routines of a life that demanded appearances be kept. She told herself she needed proof, not gossip. That was her excuse. The truth was, she wasn't ready, not yet, to admit her life might be built on something false. The proof came quietly, almost politely. One afternoon, she received an email from an unknown address. No text, just an attachment. It was a photograph. Arend standing in the lobby of the Solvare Hotel, his hand at the small of the dark-haired woman's back. The angle was discreet, taken from across the street. She stared at it for a long time, then deleted it, then pulled it from the trash and saved it to a hidden folder. The next day, she began making a list. At first, the list was simple. Who he saw when he wasn't home, what accounts he had access to that she didn't, which friends would choose him over her if things fell apart. But as the weeks passed, the list grew stranger, more deliberate. The value of the Veillon Maritime shares in his name, the contracts up for renewal in the next 6 months, the vulnerabilities of the people closest to him. Kalira had no plan at first, just the quiet gathering of information. It was almost comforting, like knitting a long, intricate scarf without knowing what it would be used for. Then came the second blow. She was at her lawyer's office, signing routine tax documents, when he casually mentioned the transfer of one of her smaller investment properties, a dockside warehouse she had inherited from her grandfather. She frowned. She had never sold it. The papers showed otherwise. The signature was hers, but not hers. The date was a day she'd been in another city. Her lawyer looked uneasy. It went to a holding company. Name on file is, well, Arend Veillon. Kalira felt something click into place. The betrayal was no longer just personal, it was structural. And structural betrayals required structural revenge. She didn't confront him. She went home, kissed him on the cheek, asked about his day, and filed away every detail of his answer for later use. That night, she called the only person she trusted completely, Soren Dalvik, her cousin. Soren had a reputation in Varensport, charming at dinner parties, dangerous in business. He had worked in corporate acquisitions long enough to know how to dismantle a company without touching a single brick. "You're not ready to take him yet," Soren said over the phone. "You have to make him think you still believe him. That's the only way you'll get close enough." So she played the part. For the next year, yes, a year, Kalira became the perfect wife again. She traveled with him, attended every gala, laughed at his jokes. She even pretended to warm to the dark-haired woman, whose name she learned was Elaine Torvik, introduced to her as an important new client.
Behind the scenes, she was building the frame of her trap. Through Soren, she began to quietly acquire small shipping companies, nothing large enough to attract attention, but enough to form the skeleton of a new network. She placed trusted people in key roles, disguised under other names. She had meetings in cities Erend had no reason to visit, using the company's own travel budget to pay for them. She learned Elaine's habits. Elaine liked to talk when she drank, and she drank often. Kalira hired a server at Elaine's favorite wine bar to record snippets of conversation. That's how she learned Elaine was not just a lover, she was a partner in Aaron's side deals, helping him move assets quietly out of Veillon Maritime into ventures he controlled alone. The first fracture in his confidence came 18 months later, when a longtime client abruptly terminated their contract. Erend was furious, convinced a competitor had stolen them. He didn't know the competitor was one of Kalira's hidden companies. Over the next 6 months, it happened again and again. Every time, the business loss was small enough to not seem suspicious, but large enough to sting. Kalira began to feed him ideas, risky investments disguised as opportunities she'd heard about at charity events. She let him take credit for them. She made sure they failed, one after another. Each failure eroded his standing with the board. Then she struck where it would hurt most. Through a chain of intermediaries, she leaked to the press that Veillon Maritime was under investigation for irregularities in its overseas tax filings. The leak was timed perfectly, just days before Erend was due to secure a major financing deal. The investors walked away, the stock dipped, board members began holding meetings without him. Erend, now distracted and paranoid, made mistakes. He moved money too quickly. He trusted the wrong intermediaries. Kalira made sure each of those intermediaries was already in her pocket. The final blow came not from her, but from the board itself. After a disastrous quarterly report, they voted to remove Erend as CEO. The man who had once commanded fleets of ships and entire trading routes left the headquarters that day in silence, his shoulders hunched against the cold. Only then did Kalira reveal the last part of her plan. Within weeks, the companies she had quietly acquired merged into a new entity, Selene Freight. And Selene Freight, sleek, efficient, and already flush with the clients she had taken, announced its acquisition of Veillon Maritime's most profitable routes. It was, as the business journals wrote, a surgical takeover. In Varensport, the whispers began. Some said she had planned it from the moment she saw him on the street with Elaine. Others said it had been longer, that Kalira Veillon had always been patient, always been watching. Elaine vanished from the city. Erend moved into a modest apartment by the harbor, far from the world of boardrooms and champagne. And Kalira? On winter evenings, when the sea was black and the wind drove the snow sideways through the streets, she would stand on her balcony with a cup of tea, looking down at the city she now owned in all but name. The revenge had not been fast, it had not been loud, but it had been absolute.